Hey, Patrick.
Top of the morning to you.
Hello.
Hey.
I almost complete. I saw Nan here blinking her name over here for a short moment, but then she disappeared. So I think she's heading over here. Let's give her some time. It's a different time for me than usual. We had the daylight saving time switch, so we moved to our winter time. I guess are you also having this summer and winter time, George? Since you're on the southern side of the globe, you must be. If you do, you must have. Are you also switching anytime soon to the summertime or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I don't think we typically do. Uh, yeah, I can't remember the last time we did a daylight savings.
So you're not doing it anymore. So
No,
for you, the meeting time is still the same.
yeah, yeah.
For
Did
me,
it
it's
did it go
now.
forward or back for you? What
It's
time is it
it's
now?
now it's used to be 11 now. Now it's 10 over here. So we are a
Okay.
bit closer to UTC now, just by
Hmm.
1 hour off, plus 1 hour basically. It's always
Oh,
mess.
wow.
All the meetings shifting, and you don't know who is switching to the daylight saving, the daylight slash the winter time, who's not. So actually, in US they also do it, but
Hmm.
they do it a week later. So for a week of time, there's this strange period where it's just chaos and nobody knows which time zone should be used.
Yeah, yeah. We should just all use epoch seconds and go with that.
We should have a all like a watch with Linux time on it and just talk in
Yeah.
Linux time. Right, Fox, give me a short moment and we can get started. All right, let's get into it. I'm gonna share my screen. Hang on a second. What's going on here? There we go. I entered some part of Zoom I haven't entered before, but there we go. That should be good. All right. All right. Welcome to November 2nd, 2023 Aries V6 community call. Our antitrust policy notice is in effect as displayed on the screen. And let's see the agenda today. So there we have it. There's quite a bit of stuff. I think there'll be things to discuss today. Before we dive in, does anyone has any amendments, adjustments to the agenda, want to discuss anything that's not included? All right. I take it as no. So let's start as usual with mentorship updates. Now we have nine on the line as usual. Would you like to give a short update, what you're up to, and what's the plan, what you're busy with?
Um, I guess I can give a really short update. So as you can see, there's some PRs on the GitHub there. So there's work being done on refactoring some of the previous work and getting things in order to be in a good state. I've been taking your inputs in the comments of the PR and trying to make the suggested changes. So yes, right now the stage is kind of rework all the code and get it in a good state.
Yeah, on that, I reviewed both of your PRs already, and I put approval here. Just left a pending question if we shall merge this, because there's some things outstanding which I know we acknowledged. I don't know, I guess, for example, here, or there's more instances of this. So I'm not sure you want to address it here or just take it, to a separate PRs, which both is fine. As I already
Right.
put it, so it's up to you how you want to,
Yeah,
approach it.
about that. So like, I think we talked about this earlier, but like, yeah, things get lost. So the thing is that some of the most concerning comments that you have are in regards to the mediation crate, right? Um, that's something which is kind of a stopgap situation, the mediation crate, and the whole crate is going to go away. It's going to be included inside the mediator itself. So I
Mm,
intend to do much of the refactoring for the mediation crate in a later PR.
right.
Right now, I'm just plumbing into it to kind of get the features working. Like it's going to be reworked in whole, the mediation crate, and like I'm going to modernize all of it. So most of the work of the mediation crate, previously known as Zum server, it was done at the start, like when I started the internship, when I was very fresh to Rust. Like that's when all of that code was written. So I didn't know much about results at the time. And,
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, that's fine. So it's just like basically, I understand the reasoning behind and why things they the way are. That's all good. Uh,
Mhm.
so I take it that we can merge this, right? And then just make sure to like keep track of my input, like feedback, and get it addressed down the line. So I'll go ahead
Yeah,
and merge it as we speak here.
yeah, sure. I have taken some notes in our Slack channel. Like in the to-do list, I've added those things that you mentioned, the
Mm-hmm.
important things. You can take a look if you like in the Slack and see if I missed something. I've
Uh-huh.
added some of the to-dos
Okay.
in
Awesome.
in the canvas.
Sounds good. Hitting merge and boom. There we go. It's in the main. Awesome. So one less PR in the list. I like to see this number decreasing. We have another PR review, and yeah, I left some very minor PR here, I guess. So you can have a look, and then we can get merged. All right. I guess it's not work in progress anymore. You can also rename the PR. Okay, so I guess that's that. Thank you, Nan, for overview and the discussion. Sync up. Let's continue. George, do you want to give any, I don't know, update briefing on Swapnil's behalf?
Yeah, we merged two PRs earlier this week. One was getting the initial APIs done. And the second one was fully switching to all of the modular components. There was some components which were still mocked out. Yeah, so that's been updated, and that also involved updating the sample app to pass in a Genesis file and things like that. And yeah, that's all working fine. I was pretty scared about this one because I was anticipating that the project might not compile for Android anymore because of libzmq.
Yeah, we
ZMQ.
saw those issues before.
Yeah, so I was very relieved when it just worked. So that's great.
I believe that. That's the worst kind of issues to solve this. Linker, it's the linker in the GitHub logs. That's disaster.
Yeah, I was thinking it might end up being like a week of struggling if we had errors, but lucky it was fine.
Nice. So it just kind of magically fixed itself over time. It seems like. I guess it was the dependency update we did. I think that was probably as we trimmed down all the dependencies. I think maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, definitely. One thing Swapnil did pick up on and fix though is this part here. I think this is just a code path that wasn't being hit, but it didn't actually compile before. So it's a path of code that only gets compiled when the target OS is Android. And I guess no one's done that in a while.
Yeah.
Presumably since the update to Android_Logger. So yeah, Swapnil just changed those APIs around, but I don't think I don't know. I don't think anyone's actually using this part of the code anyway.
Yeah. I believe this should be part of the application code itself. Probably. I was attempting to remove this a while ago. But it was part of bigger picture, kind of twisting up some approach for testing and this. Not testing, but logging and these logging dependencies. But for one reason or another, it didn't pass through back then, that PR. And yeah, but I think this should be really, I mean, we shouldn't have any Android dependencies. If anything, we could have this kind of Android dependency maybe in the UniFFI project conditionally, but not in Aries VCX or libVCX itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can refactor that out a bit. All right,
Cool.
Awesome. And
yeah,
the
other part is we spent a bit of time planning out what the UI for the holder stuff in the sample app is and going through all the flows, and it seemed to make sense to Swapnil, and we agreed on something. So he's been working on that this week.
Cool. I want to say, just a heads up that Swapnil will be giving the presentation in 2 weeks' time on November 15th on Aries Workgroup call. So everybody should head over then and have a listen and have a look.
So is that the 15th or so, around then?
Yeah, 15th, I believe. It's November 15th is Wednesday, if I remember right.
Cool. That's good.
All right. Let's go to the next stage. So we covered mentorship. Work done. Okay, apparently this is a leftover from the previous week, and which I didn't edit out. So let me fix that. This should be go. This should be gone. And I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't properly cover the merge stuff here. So just quickly, and I would say that more important an agenda is the stuff we are doing or planning to do rather than the stuff we've done. But nevertheless, let's do a quick overview as part of our weekly ritual. So we had the Axios upgrade, and that came along with some other additions I had to do. But so this is all just Node.js. Upgraded some dependency, did some minor tweaks in the wrapper. We had did peer refactoring. This kind of makes the API for the peer did create more concise and friendly, I would say. And also this is adding a new crate with a simple macro, procedural macro to generate display implementation for your structures. So this can be, I think, useful for can be utilized in variety of our crates. We just add a display implementation like this, and it prints a nice JSON without new lines. So just a heads up on that. That it's out there, available for use. Next up, we had some restructuring of the peer did crates to make the file structure simpler. Then we had, getting rid of the agency client dependencies from wherever possible. So that includes, I believe, also the UniFFI, for example, which no longer, apparently I did not remove the agency client, which is not here in the first place because it's transitive dependency of Aries VCX. So that's one place where we still have to rip it out from, but nevertheless, there is some change. So UniFFI doesn't directly call agency client stuff. So we are one step closer to featuring out the entire agency client crate in other places. So that's that. It's a small improvement. That was refactoring on the out-of-band receiver handler that's in Aries VCX. I don't think worthy of much diving. It's small anyway. And then the PR we just freshly merged by 9. So that's our review. There's no shockers. I'll have to update it afterwards. I'm not gonna do it now. But what we have in review and in progress is more interesting. So starting with the big one, the Credential 2.0 implementation. I did a review a few days ago. George, did you have a chance to have a look at it? The feedback I left after a long time. Apologies for that.
No, sorry, I didn't. I told myself that I would check your comments before this meeting, but I forgot.
Yeah, I know the feeling. It's all good. It might take a while, but I mean, I think if we get it done, I don't think there's any rush, as I understood from your side either. So we can take time, a month, or I mean, by the end of the year to stabilize the V2 stuff. I think that would be a nice target.
Yeah. I'll probably get around to looking at your comments next week. My head's just not in the V2 space at the moment.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Then we had a PR from which I have opened. This was reviewed, and I was asking, like, now I'm just waiting for you guys to have it and give it another go. But basically, I removed all these run wraps around the tests. So we used to have these macros, which created the setup object, and then we would inside of the macro, we would pass a closure, which would be executed. There was some cleanup work afterwards, but it turned out that there is no universal pre-setup and tear down kind of procedure for any of the tests needed. It used to be in the past when we had lots of global variables and there had to be cleanup of memories, stuff like that. But that's no longer the case. So it's just kind of more linear, easier to read, I think, now that the closure is gone. And second change here is the result return of the tests. So we no longer do unwraps. Instead, we just it's a bit more closer to production looking code, a normal code where we just return errors. And one advantage of the unwraps and panics we used before in tests is that they by default always include stack trace. So to kind of address that, I added a new optional feature, Cargo Tomo, the backtrace errors. So if you enable this feature, your errors so far in Aries VCX grade only will include backtrace, which is nice. That wasn't possible before, even in normal code. So now it's up to you. Can be useful in some because development mode, but probably not what you want in production. Any comments, feedback on this one?
Did you? I haven't played with the backtrace stuff before. Did you have to change much in Aries VCX to get that working?
No, it wasn't too hard. We can have a quick look. So basically, how it works is when you where is it? Yeah, when we construct the error, we capture backtrace. So this was slightly refactored. It's called new function, and the new function, because it's used into here and here, as there's more ways to construct Aries V6 error, it calls this try capture backtrace function, which optionally, based on the feature flag, either does nothing or returns a string backtrace, stringified backtrace. And then it just goes over the backtrace frames and does some filtering on it, some formatting. So I think I didn't post the example, but it prints the file name and the line and the backtrace itself. So it was pretty simple.
Wow, cool.
So yeah, we could actually now, if this is cool, if you guys think this is cool, we can adopt this also in the like Aries V6 core or the other underlying grades. So we would have trace capturing everywhere. Might be more tricky then actually, because if you in regard to error conversion and not duplicating backtraces, because you might throw Aries VCX error, which captures backtrace, and then you convert that in Aries VCX and again capture the backtrace. You'll have a huge duplication of the trace actually, I guess. So might need some additional thinking there holistically, but at kind of low effort, this works. All right, moving next. Okay, this is a quick one. Another open PR by me, just removing some obscure APIs from out of band. I don't think anyone is using. So unless there's any objections, I think we can remove them. And then the mentorship PRs we already covered. Now, what's also in progress right now is DIT peer 4, although that's kind of invisible progress. I'm doing some preliminary work in order to actually start implementing DITPeer 4. Some of it was already done with the DITPeer PRs we reviewed, and some changes I want to get done in the DID document, create, remove some of the generics, kind of simplify things out. To turn out the generic doesn't quite fit there. So yeah, so after this kind of preliminary work is done, then we can finally add DITPeer 4. And this whole thing kind of comes along also with the DidExchange PR, which was originally opened by Mira, but it was put on hold for a long time because DITPeer stuff was not quite, there was movement in the community. And so now, as I'm doing actually the DID document changes because of DITPeer 4, in order to do those, I decided to do those DID document changes hand in hand with keeping DidExchange in sync. So first thing I did was yesterday rebase the Mira's old PR on the latest man. That was a bit of a challenge, but it was doable. And what I'll be doing next, after I get the things actually working, it's not yet compiling. After it is, then I'll start doing the changes I want to do on the DID document, along with keeping DidExchange in sync. Get those two things merged, and then finally, when things are settled, I'll move on to actual DITPeer 4 implementation, and then migrate the DidExchange from the current DITPeer 2 and 3 to DITPeer 4. So that's a bit of a journey ahead in this regard. Yeah. On a side, I'm also doing the update of the demo Aries DCX, which was kind of put on hold for a long time as well. I'll skip over that. Rather, I missed something. I missed the Bogdan's PR. I thought it's somewhere here. In review. Okay. Apparently, I didn't put it. I believed I included it, but I didn't.
That's okay. It's not really a lot to show necessarily. I'm still ironing out stuff, and the trade bounds that I've been getting to are very likely to cause brain damage. So I'm working on implementing on refactoring the issuer side of OnumCreds now, and I'm practically almost done, but I still got to figure out some trade bounds. If I actually manage to do it, then the prover and verifier, which are anyways smaller, should be kind of easier to set in place. So we could probably, I don't know, discuss about it tomorrow.
All right. Yep. So we have the PR here. I don't know. Yeah. Still, do you want to, or are you able to give kind of I don't know, a walkthrough through the changes you are doing? So George and perhaps Nayan will be also familiar with, I don't know, the ideas you are exploring here.
Okay. I can try. So essentially, the whole point is kind of decoupling things, and given the tendency to kind of, or the desire, I guess, ultimately to be able to use different sets of credentials with different verification methods and wallets and ledgers. I'm kind of making, or I'm attempting to make these things a bit more data structure centric, in the sense that if we take the ledger trait, since you have it there, for instance, it's actually really it's much smaller than what it used to be, and the idea behind that is that ultimately, when you want to talk to the ledger, and that's probably valid for any ledger or any kind of storage you're going to have, at least for this purposes. What you ultimately end up doing is that you create some sort of request, you send it, and you expect some response back. And that's actually, usable beyond what we get out of a ledger. So instead of having all of these methods for like, I don't know, get me a did, or get me an attribute, or get me something, or get me a revocation, a registry revocation delta, or stuff like that, that might not even gonna be available in certain ledgers, right? Instead of resorting to that, it's basically more about just pass me a request, I'll give you a response, and you do whatever you want with it. And then here comes the ledger request trait, which will essentially be implemented for like data structures or some types that you you construct, so you end up with a request that you then pass to the ledger, and then the response will be practically again decoded through that same ledger request trait. So that for a given type, you're able to create a request and you expect a certain response out of it. And this does not concern the ledger um, as in the ledger implementation. The ledger is really just taking care of sending that to whatever storage or location or database or whatever blockchain, and then giving you back what you asked for. And it's kind of similar for the wallet trait, although that's way more, I don't know, strict in some sense. And they also kind of function differently. Especially because the wallet is also used for some things like signing stuff, or I don't know, generating new keys and rotating keys for a DID, or packing and unpacking messages, which essentially involve signing. So in an ideal world, these things might be abstracted away a bit through the other methods, like getting the, I don't know, key from the wallet and then using that in the sign method or something like that. But it's just too much to change right now, and I don't necessarily know how it would play out. And especially with the wallet, the VDR Tools wallet, that was literally built to duplicate all the stuff, and they primarily expose methods that just do the whole thing for you. I didn't really want to get into the weeds of that as well. And obviously there might be some, I know, security considerations that you just don't want to have access to certain stuff from the wallet like that. So you might have particular methods on your wallet implementation. Take VDR Tools, for instance, that gets the key that you're not otherwise able to get, from the interface, which makes sense. And then you use that to sign stuff. So there could be that. And but in terms of like storage and retrieval, it kind of functions in the same manner as the ledger. So there's a wallet record trait that will essentially again be implemented for data structures, and you convert those data structures to a wallet record, or you convert from a wallet record to the data structure. Again, pretty much allowing you to store anything you want in a type safe kind of manner while still being flexible enough. Still working out some stuff. So right now I'm working on the issuer. I pretty much implemented the methods, but there's some friction between the retrieval and the storage of the records, and it comes down to the record ID. So while that can be left as string, I actually figured that we might be able to make it more flexible. And another reason for that is, for instance, that in Credix and Indy altogether, the ID is actually incorporated within the wallet record, but in OnonCreds, or maybe not OnonCreds, but it's actually incorporated within the data structure. Sorry, so the credential definition data structure has the ID within it, but OnonCreds RS, for instance, does not do that. So if you actually are more flexible in terms of the ID that you need to pass into constructor wallet record, you can just pass in nothing as an associated type when you know you already have the wallet ID within the data structure, or you could pass it something that's required. Now these could be obviously extended more, maybe, to accept some other parameters, but it's always a balance and a question of how that's actually going to play out with the rest of the stuff and the verifiable credential aspects. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, and right now I'm basically struggling a bit to figure out all the trade bounds necessary to kind of work with these things where the wallet, especially in OnCreds, because there are like just a little friction that's between the record ID from the wallet record and the wallet trade itself, and then the associated types, and being able to use them interchangeably a bit. On the other hand, something that's really I think this would have been much simpler to solve if Credex didn't really abuse stuff in terms of the I don't know, just data structure IDs and have all these new types that practically do nothing and they're pretty badly implemented and there's like very little useful stuff you can do with them. It would have been helpful, for instance, so they allow the conversion from a string to a given, I don't know, let's say a credential definition ID, but you cannot do the other way around, or you cannot even reference the, like have as ref stir, for instance, for the type, which is kind of the pitfall with new types. So they're really nice when they actually have a purpose, but otherwise you're missing out on a lot of stuff if you don't implement all that's required on them, or that could, all of everything that could be useful on them. And while the field itself is public, like the string that these new types encapsulate is public, you cannot represent that in trade bounds. You need actual traits. That's how Rust works. But anyway, so yeah, I'm kind of trying to go around that. And if I do, then stuff will basically be in place, and the remaining part would be implementing all these wallet records and ledger request traits for the data types being used in, I know, for instance, from IndieCredX. But kind of make my case. So, like I said, you could allegedly be using a some unencrypted data structures with the same wallet, or even maybe with the same OnCreds implementations, like I know the IndieCredX implementations of verifiable credentials, and you can just pass in the same data structure provided that it matches some bounds, which would be nice and all. And the bounds are this way more in the consumer's control, because they can declare them on the types instead of having them tightly bound to the arguments passed in, or I don't know, just the interfaces themselves. But there's also the kind of orphan rule problem, in the sense that, I don't know, if, for instance, you want to use OnCreds RS types right now, then you might have to wrap them in new types so you can implement the trait from Aries VCX on them, because you're an external consumer, you don't have access to that. So ideally, at least in the long run, these implementations could be done maybe behind feature flags in Aries VCX directly. But right now, it is what it is. But I think you kind of had to do that in some way, some form or another. But yeah, and again, this is meant to be a POC, so it's a lot. Like I honestly thought it's going to be a bit more straightforward with all the back and forth that I had around this, but every time I looked, it just got worse with all the serialization and deserialization and type erasure, and yeah, it's just a lot to walk through to kind of get an interface in place. And as I said yesterday, I think I thought for a couple of days on how to approach all of it, and kind of had a big picture idea, but ironing out all the wrinkles would take a lot of time. And then we could have spent this week, which wasn't enough anyway. Probably need at least a month to plan everything. And we could have spent that talking, or I could have tried and, I don't know, put out some sort of POC. It might not be perfect, it might not be even usable or whatever, but at least it might lay at least some sort of ground forward. Architecture is hard like that, I guess. When you consider, I know there's SQLX, and when they changed from 0.6 to 0.7, the entire architecture was redone. That took 6 months, I believe. So it's the kind of thing that takes time. But
yeah, this is this looks like a lot to consume. But yeah, definitely thanks for kind of guide through. I think there's definitely some good thoughts here, and only thing I was mainly worried about was the coupling between the components, as you mentioned yesterday, that it would be hard to split them. But I guess that makes sense for, like I can imagine coupling from AnonCreds to wallet, because AnonCreds is really like using the wallet. It's depending on these wallet trades and whatnot. But I would still would like to have us the ledger liberated as a I don't know in terms of the changes you've done, how challenging it's gonna be or not, and also the wallet itself. Like I might want to, in some I would like to I might want to use the ledger, for example, the ledger stuff we have, and the AnonCreds resolver or something like that in the future, without necessarily bringing all the AnonCreds logic and even wallet in this case, because for fetching data of the ledger, you don't really need the wallet. You don't really need to have entire crypto code and how to issue credentials.
But I think it's not there right now either. Like they're still kind of split apart, and the only reason the wallet shows up in the AnonCreds stuff is, I guess, for convenience. It would probably be much easier to kind of pass in all the stuff that you need to take from the wallet, from like interrogating the wallet before you use AnonCreds, some AnonCreds implementation. Get all the stuff you need, pass it in, and then when you get the stuff out, you make sure to put it in the wallet. But that's pretty much, if you go to that extent, that's literally what the like Credex and AnonCreds RS are doing. That's what they do. They basically, you give them what they need, and they generate new data structures for you. So if you're not bringing in the wallet in the AnonCreds, like the issuer, the verifier, and the prover stuff, then you're not really doing that much on top of what the underlying library is.
Yeah, fair enough.
So at least this provides.
With AnonCreds, I think it makes sense, at least given the current implementation. Just the other, the other direction of dependencies. Like I understand that Credex, it's going to be hard to use without wallet right now, and might not make sense to try that. But the ledger, right? Like I might want to use the ledger without AnonCreds and without the wallet, for example.
Right, and this is, for instance, something that this separation allows you to do, because the traits, the wallet record trait and the ledger request traits are generic over, like the traits themselves are generic over the ledger or wallet implementation respectively. So, and you can implement that for any data structure you want. So if, for instance, you want to get the credential definition, but you know the structure of the credential definition, you know exactly the fields that you need, and you don't want to import Credex in the Credex just to get one data type, right? You can create your own with the fields that are needed, implement the trait on it, and use that with the ledger. Build a request from it and get a response back, and you can do that. Whereas if the ledger implementation for Indy was accepting, I don't know, Indy Credex data types, then you cannot really do that anymore, because you need to either convert to that data type, and that would mean importing stuff
Mm,
and so on and so forth.
right.
So that's pretty much the point. And again, so you could allegedly implement the trait for OnCreds RS data types too, and just build in the ledger requests from those, or maybe from some wrapper types of those and some additional stuff that's needed. Like for, I guess this is the perfect example that for schema, there's some sequence ID in ND that's not, it's not declared in OnCreds RS.
Mm. Does anyone else has any comments, questions here?
It's great that you did this, Bogdan, before you leave, to write down your thoughts on a pretty epic idea. I'll need to spend some time looking at it.
Yeah, right now there's not much to look at, but I really hope I can get the implementation straight, at least, you know, the traits, because they're implementing the wallet record or the ledger request stuff for various data types. That's really easy, trust me. So there's not that much that you can do. I don't know. For instance, for Indy, there's that request builder stuff, and you can build things with it. So I know you have your schema, and you can build with the schema fields the request that's needed to be sent to the ledger, and so on. So it should be fairly simple, especially looking at the current code. That's what the current code does too. Is just extracting that away from the ledger itself and using that, or yeah, separating that into its own space. So these are pretty self-contained, and they should be easy. I guess the idea kind of boils down with how these types interact with each other. You might have to resort to adding trait bounds to stuff, because the concrete types will come from the highest level of the library, right? You're building an agent, and you decide you want to use the Indy Ledger, the Askar wallet, and I don't know, OnCreds RS, for instance. So provided that the traits for all these things, like the wallet, the ledger, the OnCred stuff, they're all implemented. When you pass in, you know, down in the lower levels of Aries VCX, you're going to be working with trait bounds for these traits, right? So, for instance, you're going to have to maybe declare in some points that the associated type credDef on the OnCreds trait. I'm going to split that in issuer, approver, and verifier. But anyway, so that associated type implements wallet record for the whatever wallet generic that you passed in, which you can do, but just be aware of that. And that's kind of the thing that I'm maybe not entirely sure about, if it can just be tweaked in or retrofitted in right now. But like I was saying, it's a pretty huge task. It will take a lot of time. But yeah, just kind of, I don't know, maybe if I'm able to give you some sort of head start on it, or at least some ideas that you can either agree with or disagree with, so you can decide on how to move forward. That's, you know, that's good enough for me, I guess. And I'm sure you guys will be able to figure it out down the line.
Thanks, Bogdan. Yeah, this is valuable, and yeah, I'll also you'll have to take a look at it, a better look. But I guess I'll just wait until you put it to the latest stage you can, and have a go at it and some discussions, I guess, around it. Okay, let's move on to the next point. We don't have much left, as much as we don't have much time left, but I think we are doing well. So yeah, I just wanted to repropose some additional changes to the structure. So that was the structure we kind of agreed on. It was and I have few thoughts how we could do it a bit differently. So this is my reproposal, bit of a more restructuring, where the main idea here is to separate out the Aries components, not really separate, not necessarily structure the root directory by, I don't know, language or I don't know how we did it. We had wrappers, and then we had actually like a whole bunch of random stuff. Some, yes, separated by a legacy dimension. And then we had a bunch of stuff here which is used by Aries, and a bunch of stuff which is like generic and reusable outside of Aries context, and it was still all kind of mingled up in the root directory. So that's the main thing I'm trying to address in this reproposal, where I'm having a main Aries directory with everything that is related to Aries, whether it's wrappers, it's Aries VCX itself, the agents, the Aries agents specifically, or legacy stuff used by Aries. So it's like that. And then the anon creds, which here I'm assuming it might not be the case. I guess depending how we go about Aries VCX core, if it's gonna be broken down into multiple kind of crates, or if it's gonna be one crate with feature flags, feature flags those individual components, the wallet ledger and the anon crates. But that's something that can be it's not necessarily tied to Aries. I guess in the future, this would be more like anon creds, I don't know, data store anon creds resolver or anon creds method, which one of the implementation would be to fetch it out of the ledger, and another method could be fetch anon creds schema out of a web URL, for example, and then separate out the other. I guess these are the main two kind of generally reusable components, the DID document and all the DID and DID methods. And then whatever doesn't fit elsewhere, I've put two tools or whatever this would be named. But that's the idea. I'm curious what you guys think.
It looks good to me. Wallet and ledger being under a non-creds might be suspicious.
Oh yeah, okay, that probably means different naming. I just didn't want to call it Aries VCX core because that's equally not a great name. So I guess I'll just put this one, but let me change it right now quickly to something. I don't know.
Honestly, I think having the VCX core stuff is not that bad of an idea, because so it's going to come down to a lot of feature flags down the line for various implementations, and having all of them together, the crate is not necessarily big. It's not right now, and it's probably not going to. It's going to be even less, even smaller in the future. But especially with these changes of like the data types from Credix implementing some trait that's associated to, I don't know, the VDR tools wallet, then you start running into these feature flag composition situations where if you have these things in a different trait, in a different crate, you run into issues, especially because implementing traits require that either the trait is local or that the type it's implemented for is local. So you wouldn't be able to implement the I don't know, wallet record traits for Credix types if you're adding that, importing the Credix types to OnonCreds. I think it's just going to be a bit weird. I wouldn't really worry on that, honestly. They can always be split apart if it makes sense, but I think it's easier to keep things in the same spot.
Yeah. All right. Well, just I see. I see the point. So this doesn't have to be split. I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess the time will show if there's space for splitting. But yeah, that's the idea. I don't know. So have a perhaps look at this in your quiet time and see if you would like to propose any further modification. It's quite a big change to what we agreed before. So hence I'm asking what you guys think. All right, so it's there. Have a look at it. And to close it up, another kind of meta discussion here is just something I opened. Well, I did some README changes. That's rather minor to the point of discussion here. Feel free to review those as well. But the kind of big change, big change I did is I changed the package name of Aries VCX from -, to underscore. And then we came into a discussion with Nan that perhaps we could rename the project to. Well, I was making a point that Aries underscore VCX, that's the name of the crate, and Aries VCX, Aries -VCX, that's the name of the package or like the whole repo, the project, which also includes like other stuff like DID, DidDoc, DidPeer, did resolver, the wallet stuff, this Anon Creds resolver, stuff like that. And so then the question is, given the open question, question 9 open here is whether we shall not use this as to also rename the kind of the repo name, the project name, to I guess not the repo name, but the project name itself to the way we refer in wiki and everywhere to the repo with Aries, something more human readable. But I think it's not a bad idea. It's kind of I don't want to do how they call it, bike shedding too much about it, but still it's a change. It's a discussion. So if there's not much opinions there, then we'll just, I guess, go with something what the attendees of the discussion agree on. So have a look at it. I know, just wanted to give you a briefing on what's going on here and the idea. We don't have much time, but anyway, so whether you have any feedback on this or you have any other point, we have 2 minutes left. So anyone?
I'm definitely on board with underscoring the crate name. That's a great idea. And yeah, I don't really mind what the project name is or the repo name.
Right. Okay, then we can leave it for the GitHub if there's any more thoughts. I take it that we covered everything, I guess, and the only thing left is to wish you guys, to wish you all a nice rest of the week and successful day. Cheers.
Cheers, you too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Have fun. See ya.